From storyflo Daily, the day's top 10, May 31st. The storyflo Daily Brief for May 31st. Here are the 10 most trending stories from the last day across the open web. First, from Beyond the Peloton. Key takeaways: 2026 Giro d'Italia Stage 20. Jonas Vingegaard has secured his overall victory at the Giro d'Italia, with a strong performance on the final climb to Piancavallo. He made his move with just over 10 kilometers remaining on the second and final ascent, gaining a significant advantage over his general classification rivals. Vingegaard's victory was built on his ability to consistently stay ahead of his competitors, never giving up significant time to any of his GC rivals. The only exception was the Stage 10 time trial, where he lost some ground, but he was able to regain control and maintain his lead throughout the rest of the race. The final stage was a grueling test, with a massive climb to Piancavallo that pushed the riders to their limits. Vingegaard's attack on the second descent proved to be the decisive moment, as he was able to pull away from the other contenders and secure his victory. Vingegaard's overall win is a testament to his strength and endurance as well as his strategic racing. He was able to navigate the challenges of the Giro d'Italia and emerge victorious, cementing his position as one of the top riders in the sport. The conclusion of the Giro d'Italia marks the end of a thrilling competition, with Vingegaard's victory being the culmination of weeks of intense racing. His performance will be remembered as one of the highlights of the event, and he will now look to build on this success in future competitions. Second, from Diary of Bitcoin. BNB dispara 16% and Undia Y super loss $737. Binance Coin has experienced a significant surge, increasing by 16% in a single day, driven by unprecedented trading volume that has tripled the monthly average. The asset has reached levels not seen in months, with its price now at $737.95. This increase has been accompanied by a substantial rise in daily trading volume, reaching $3.97 billion, which is a 178% increase. The capitalization of Binance Coin has also grown, reaching $99.46 billion. The current price is still 46% away from its all-time high of $1,370. The recent movement has been driven by increased activity on the Binance platform, particularly in spot and derivatives trading. The high trading volume suggests both institutional and retail participation. The expansion of liquidity indicates a strong interest in the asset, which could lead to further price increases if the volume remains above average. The technical analysis of the price movement indicates a positive momentum, with the price surpassing the 7-day and 15-day moving averages. However, the RSI may be overbought, which could lead to a consolidation in the near term. The MACD is also showing a favorable signal, with a crossover to the upside. The fundamental analysis suggests that the demand for Binance Coin is driven by its utility as a discount token for commissions and participation in the BNB chain. The current valuation of $99.46 billion reflects a reasonable valuation compared to its competitors. The stable circulating supply and the burn mechanism continue to exert deflationary pressure on the asset. Based on the technical and fundamental analysis, it is recommended to buy Binance Coin, with a stop loss set below $650 and a partial profit taking at $780. The current movement offers opportunities for investors in multiple time horizons. In the short term, investors can enter at retracements to $700, with a stop loss at $650. In the medium term, investors can accumulate the asset gradually as long as the price remains above the 50-day moving average. In the long term, investors can take a structural position based on the utility of the token. A more conservative approach would be to wait for confirmation of a weekly close above $750 before increasing exposure. Third, from Crypt the Briefing, U.S. Central Command disables Iran-bound cargo ship with missile strike in Gulf of Oman. The U.S. Central Command has carried out a missile strike in the Gulf of Oman, targeting a cargo ship bound for Iran. This action is part of a broader strategy by the U.S. to enforce its interests in the region and globally. The strike demonstrates the U.S. military's ability to project power and disrupt shipments it deems undesirable. The incident may have significant implications for global trade dynamics, as the U.S. seeks to assert its influence over maritime commerce. This could lead to increased tensions with countries like Iran, which may feel targeted by such actions. The US is also using digital means to enforce its policies, including the use of cryptocurrency regulations to track and disrupt illicit financial flows. The use of missile strikes to disable cargo ships is a significant escalation of U.S. military power in the region. It highlights the U.S. commitment to enforcing its sanctions and trade restrictions, even if it means using force. The impact of this action on global trade and relations with Iran and other countries in the region remains to be seen. The U.S. strategy of combining maritime and digital asset enforcement may reshape the global trade landscape. Countries and companies may need to adapt to new realities, including increased scrutiny of cryptocurrency transactions and heightened risks of military intervention in maritime trade. As the U.S. continues to assert its influence, other countries may respond with their own measures, leading to a complex and potentially volatile geopolitical situation. The situation in the Gulf of Oman and the broader region will likely continue to evolve in response to the U.S. actions. The use of military force to disable a cargo ship sets a significant precedent, and it may lead to further escalation or retaliation from affected countries. The global community will be watching closely to see how the situation unfolds and what implications it may have for international trade and relations. Fourth, from the Daily Bast. Donald Trump goes on all-night meme posting spree. The 6-hour posting marathon unfolded on a day when the only item listed on the president's public schedule was executive time. Beginning at noon, Trump shared or reposted more than 50 pieces of content ranging from patriotic fantasy art and self-congratulatory graphics to crime memes, military imagery, celebrity tributes, and attacks on political rivals. Another showed Trump looming over Greenland beneath the words "Hello, Greenland." Trump has repeatedly argued that having Greenland as U.S. territory is vital for national security, though both Greenlandic and Danish leaders have forcefully rejected any suggestion that the territory could be acquired by the United States. One particularly strange image showed Trump dressed as a military commander as fighter jets exploded across the sky behind him, beneath the caption, "You're getting discombobulated." The post appeared to reference Trump's claim that a secret U.S. weapon he dubbed a discombobulator helped capture Venezuelan leader Nicolás Maduro. Trump also revived one of his longest-running grudges, sharing a meme depicting 5 photos of Rosie O'Donnell as the stages of Trump derangement syndrome. The jab was the latest installment in a feud that stretches back nearly 20 years and has survived multiple presidential campaigns, 2 administrations, and countless social media broadsides. President Donald Trump spent much of Saturday flooding Truth Social with a torrent of memes, slop, political attacks, and fan-made tributes. Among the more unusual posts were separate images showing Trump riding horseback beside George Washington on a dirt road next to a NASCAR race. The feed also featured a barrage of side-by-side graphics contrasting Biden's solution to problems such as theft, shoplifting, squatting, fentanyl use, and illegal immigration with what supporters portrayed as Trump's tougher approach, which typically involved arrests, imprisonment, or deportation. Former President Barack Obama was also a recurring target. Trump shared multiple memes attacking Obama, including one depicting the Obama Presidential Library as a giant trash can and another blaming Obama and former President Joe Biden for problems at the Lincoln Memorial reflecting pool. At other points during the spree, Trump shared multiple images of Chinese President Xi Jinping, including one showing the pair shaking hands beneath a couch and lamenting Democratic opposition to his long-desired White House ballroom. Construction is already underway on the remnants of the White House's East Wing as part of the $400 million project, which Trump has described as a gift to the United States of America. Trump now also claims the ballroom would conceal a vast underground bunker complex containing a military hospital, meeting rooms, and top-secret research facilities. Trump pointed to Beijing's sprawling Great Hall of the People as an example of the kind of grand venue he believes the White House should have. Another image shared on Saturday appeared to nod to those ambitions, depicting a futuristic drone port perched atop the White House roof as aircraft buzzed overhead. Taken together, the posts offered a remarkably unfiltered look at the subjects occupying Trump's attention on a quiet Saturday: Greenland, Rosie O'Donnell, military power, drones, and himself. By the end of the 6-hour barrage, the president's feed looked less like a communications strategy and more like a running stream of consciousness. Fifth, from family troubles. Q and a replay. A Q and a session was held last week and a replay is available for those who missed it. The replay can be accessed through a provided link. This intensive is designed to support parents and provide them with valuable information and tools. Those interested in learning more about the intensive can find additional details through a provided link. This will give them a better understanding of what to expect from the sessions and how they can benefit from attending. The intensive is a limited-time opportunity, and with registration closing soon, interested parents should act quickly to secure a spot. Once registration closes, it may not be possible to join the intensive, so prompt action is recommended. It is also possible to read more about the queue and a session and the intensive through additional links, which provide further information and insights. These resources can help parents make informed decisions about their participation. 6th, from the Daily Upside. U.S. exchanges crash prediction markets party. Wall Street wants to put a suit and tie on prediction markets. That subject matter could differentiate them from prediction market platforms known for hosting bets on topics like what color Gatorade will be splashed on Super Bowl champions or when the U.S. government will confirm aliens exist. A real bet on Polymarket with more than $44 million in contracts. Nasdaq and Cboe are introducing binary betting products that let investors wager on financial market outcomes, such as whether a stock index will hit a certain level or where a share price might land after a company's earnings call. The main way exchanges are trying to button up prediction markets is by launching their offerings under the approval of the Securities and Exchange Commission, not the Commodity Futures Trading Commission. While the former polices stock markets and has historically taken a more aggressive approach to enforcement, and the latter oversees markets for physical assets from gold to coca and corn, the boundary gets murkier with digital assets. In the world of prediction markets, the distinction is about as messy as a line a toddler might make with a marker, a wall, and 5 minutes unsupervised. Kalshi, the largest platform in the U.S. by far, and Polymarket's U.S. outfit are both regulated by the CFTC, as are binary betting options from crypto exchanges Coinbase and Gemini. But while these platforms maintain that their offerings should be federally regulated, many states don't agree. Prediction markets have been on the hot seat for years as states side-eye their claims that outcome-related contracts on sports events aren't the same as sports gambling, which is highly regulated by individual states. While Minnesota enacted the first statewide ban on the platforms last week, President Trump is on the side of prediction markets, writing on Truth Social last week that the CFTC has, and should continue to have, sole authority over prediction markets. While Minnesota's law doesn't explicitly mention wagers on financial outcomes in its definition of prediction markets, it kicks off its list with the phrase including but not limited to. Cboe's executive vice president and head of derivatives, Rob Hocking, draws a clear line on what kinds of why bets should fall under the SEC's jurisdiction. He called out state-level regulators who have pursued legal action against prediction markets, including Minnesota Gov. Tim Walz, if it directly affects the company's financial performance or is material non-public information that, if I were trading in the traditional markets, would be disclosed, it should be a security regulated by the SEC, Hocking said. Any less direct prediction-style bets about a company. Hocking made up an example about how many times Elon Musk says XYZ in an earnings call aren't securities and aren't going to directly affect a company's performance, according to Hocking. Platforms including Kalshi and Polymarket offer bets similar to Hocking's example, but also bets that more closely mirror the kinds of wagers Cboe and Nasdaq are planning for their own products. Kalshi's Finance tab shows users have wagered billions on contracts for how high the S&P and Nasdaq will reach this year, as well as whether companies like Tesla and eBay will meet different financial targets. When asked about prediction market bets on the weather, Angel said, "You can make arguments that there are people who have legitimate risk management issues around things like rain, like farmers." Angel said the reason financial companies want their products regulated by the SEC and not the CFTC could be as simple as the devil you know is better than the one you don't. Cboe and Nasdaq have long-standing relationships with the SEC that platforms like Kalshi lack. Ambiguity could extend beyond the Finance tab. James Angel, an associate professor at Georgetown who specializes in financial regulation, explained to the Daily Upside, Kalshi and Polymarket, which aren't registered security exchanges, have valid reasons for wanting the CFTC mandate over prediction markets to be as broad as possible, Hocking said. If these get designated as securities, either they need to go through the registration process to become a licensed securities exchange or they have to alter the contracts, he noted. For now, the platforms have Trump's backing to stay under the CFTC. The Trump presidency has skewed the power balance toward the CFTC, a sharp pivot from when a Gary Gensler-led SEC under former President Joe Biden pushed to regulate another emerging market that stirred debates about which agency should monitor it, crypto. Under Trump, the SEC has backed down from attempts to have more oversight over new financial products, scrapping various lawsuits. 7th, from the Crypto Crib weekly newsletter. The past 7 days have been a reminder that crypto rarely moves in a straight line. After months of institutional optimism, ETF demand has suddenly flipped negative. Bitcoin has come under heavy pressure, and one of Wall Street's most powerful figures has now openly declared war on key parts of the Clarity Act. Yet despite the fear, the bigger picture remains far more interesting than the headlines suggest. One of the biggest stories this week was the relentless stream of ETF redemptions. Recent data showed more than $334 million left U.S. spot Bitcoin ETFs in a single day. Crypto briefing U.S. Bitcoin ETFs have suffered a multi-billion-dollar outflow streak throughout May. Blockchain BlackRock's IBIT has recorded some of its largest outflow days since launch. The block for much of 2025, ETF inflows acted as the market's strongest tailwind. Now they are acting as the biggest short-term headwind. The question is whether this is simply profit-taking after an enormous run or the beginning of a broader institutional de-risking phase. For now, the market is voting cautiously. Perhaps the most important political story of the week came from JP Morgan CEO Jamie Dimon. Dimon publicly stated that major banks will fight aspects of the Clarity Act, specifically provisions surrounding stablecoins and yield-bearing digital dollar products. He argued that crypto firms could gain advantages without being subject to the same regulatory requirements imposed on banks. CoinDesk reports indicate Dimon directly criticized efforts from crypto lobby groups and Coinbase leadership, warning that the current framework could face significant opposition from traditional financial institutions. CoinDesk: The Clarity Act has become one of the most important pieces of crypto legislation in the United States. Supporters argue it would create clearer rules for digital assets, accelerate institutional adoption, reduce regulatory uncertainty, provide a framework for stablecoin growth. Banks see it differently. The battle is rapidly becoming traditional finance vs crypto-native finance. And with trillions of dollars at stake, neither side is backing down. Markets are nervous. ETF flows have turned negative. Bitcoin is correcting. Banks are pushing back against crypto legislation. But zoom out. The biggest institutions in the world are now arguing over crypto regulation because crypto has become too important to ignore. Wall Street isn't fighting over something it thinks is irrelevant. The battle has moved from will crypto survive? Who controls the rails of the next financial system? And that's a very different conversation. Stay ahead of the moves that matter. 8th, from the illusion of consensus. 3 years at the illusion of consensus. In 2023, Jay Bhattacharya and I had a vision to create something new, something that challenges the status quo and exposes politicized consensus in science. And we wanted to fight back against the censorship industrial complex. The illusion of consensus became the central hub for consistent conversations with brave scientists who were censored, attacked, and demonized during COVID. We had on dissident experts in the true sense of the word across disciplines such as Dr. Robert Malone, Dr. Per Corey, Dr. Matthias Desmet, Dr. Tracy Beth Hogue, and others. Since Jay has left the podcast to lead the NIH, the illusion of consensus has expanded and grown beyond just conversations about societal problems. I've endeavored to provide you with science-based tools to reclaim your health and consciousness. I had on the leading experts on sleep science, mindfulness, addiction, dating and relationships, vaccines, and psychedelic therapy for mental illness. Still, I've managed to do all this while continuing to challenge powerful figures like Republican Senator Ron Johnson on the Iran war and Mark Cuban on COVID vaccine mandates and DEI initiatives. In the coming months, I'm excited to interview leading officials in the Trump administration and those who have left it to provide the public with an in-depth look into how power in DC works. The illusion of consensus isn't just commentary, it's a powerful force in the discourse that reveals and shapes truth, science, and institutional power. To continue providing illuminating conversations and debates to hash out contentious issues, I need your help. If you value the content I create here on a consistent basis, please consider becoming a paid member. Only for today and tomorrow, I'm offering a limited 20% discount on annual paid memberships. You'll get early access to podcast episodes, the ability to ask questions to my future podcast guests, and monthly Q+S. This Substack runs only through reader and listener paid subscriptions. Since Jay left for NIH, the economics of this project have changed dramatically. If you join now, you can access my brand new 2-hour conversation with Brett Weinstein unpacking dating and mating through an evolutionary lens. You'll also get the full archive of episodes, including these high-profile conversations. Alternatively, for those who'd like to make a bigger contribution to my work, You can support the illusion of consensus with a one-time donation. You will automatically be added as a paid member to unlock exclusive content. Future guests of the show include Jeffrey Miller, Dave Smith, Ben Shapiro, Glenn Greenwald, Michael Tracy, Jay Bhattacharya, Callie Means, Rob Henderson, and more. Anyone who donates $100 or more will get a personal email note from me, and anyone who donates $250 or more will get a personal 5-10-minute phone call from me. Thanks to all of you for continuing to read and watch my work. The illusion of consensus is not just a podcast. It is one of the few independent platforms willing to challenge institutional narratives, host forbidden conversations, and force a more honest public reckoning with science, health, power, and freedom. Happy 3 years. 9th, from the Hindu top, ugly face of BJP's politics of revenge. Opposition leaders condemn attack on TMC's Abhishek. Opposition leaders have condemned an attack on Abhishek, a member of the Trinamool Congress Party and MP from Diamond Harbour. The incident occurred when Abhishek visited Sonarpur town on the outskirts of Kolkata to meet the family of a Trinamool Congress worker who was allegedly killed in post-poll violence. During the visit, stones, eggs, and abuses were hurled at Abhishek. The attack has sparked widespread condemnation from opposition leaders, who have criticized the incident as an example of politics of revenge. The opposition has accused the ruling party of perpetrating violence against its opponents. The incident is the latest in a series of violent clashes that have taken place in the region following recent elections. The opposition has alleged that the ruling party is using violence and intimidation to silence its opponents and consolidate power. The Trinamool Congress has demanded action against those responsible for the attack on Abhishek and has called for an end to the violence and intimidation. The party has also accused the ruling party of failing to maintain law and order in the region. The attack on Abhishek has highlighted the deepening political tensions in the region and has sparked fears of further violence and instability. The ultimate claim to victimhood is the claim that a group of people are refugees from mass persecution or genocide. The political left covets this victim status more than anything else because, within first world liberal societies, refugees have immediate political capital and access to easy money. The opposition has called for calm and restraint, but has also demanded that the ruling party take concrete steps to address the violence and ensure the safety of its opponents. 10th, from Zero Hedge, Seattle to declare state of emergency to protect transgender refugees. Within every leftist narrative there is an agenda for power and a life without adult responsibility. It is perhaps ironic that thousands of progressive activists and LGBT advocates are leaving red states over imaginary oppression after they spent years attacking conservatives for escaping blue states over very real medical tyranny. At least conservatives never called themselves refugees. Leftists specifically believe their rights are being violated in red states because conservative governments won't allow them to mutilate their children with hormone therapy and sex change surgeries. This nightmare trend, which is increasingly proven by science to have a detrimental effect on the minds and health of the people who undergo gender therapies, is still heavily protected in leftist havens like Seattle. For reasonable and sane people still living in the Emerald City, relocation should be a top priority because the Golden Hordes are making the Great Northwest their home base. Seattle's new Democratic Socialist Communist Mayor Katie Wilson is more than happy to oblige the mentally ill mob clamoring for access. The problem is, as the crazies move in, all the businesses are moving out. This conundrum leaves Wilson's poorly managed city in a financial bind. New transgender residents are calling themselves refugees and demanding access to tax-based subsidies in order to survive. One would think they could simply get jobs like everyone else. But, much like third world migrants, everywhere these people go they are always jobless and in dire need of handouts. The Seattle LGBTQ Commission has requested that Mayor Katie Wilson declare a civil state of emergency due to an influx of transgender and queer individuals relocating from conservative states, which is straining local housing, food, and mental health resources. National data shows that 84% of transgender and non-binary people have made major life decisions, such as relocating, since November 2025 due to state policies. This mass influx means some Seattle support organizations will face a depletion of resources by the end of the summer. In response, the mayor is launching an interdepartmental team to assess community needs by August. Under Seattle Municipal Code and state law, the mayor can proclaim a civil emergency which grants temporary powers. These include entering contracts and spending without standard bidding, budgeting or permitting delays, accessing or reallocating city contingency/emergency funds, and directing personnel and resources more flexibly. However, the most likely agenda behind an emergency declaration would be to push for federal funds, which, of course, Seattle will not get. The city is facing a massive budget shortfall of $500 million for 2026 and 2027, which means numerous programs and employees will have to be cut. Katie Wilson has driven away a number of corporate taxpayers, and more are getting ready to leave. This has recently forced the mayor, who initially said good riddance to big business, to change her communist tune and take more diplomatic approach to corporations in the region. Unfortunately for her, she has made her bed with a gaggle of mentally disturbed fanatics. They want their handouts, and they want to destroy major companies paying for those handouts. As this trend continues, it is likely that Seattle faces severe economic crisis, or even collapse. On the bright side, the relocation of hundreds of thousands of trans activists means less problem children for red states. Given that these people seem to cause chaos wherever they go, it's better that they congregate in a place like Seattle and drive each other insane rather than spread out and plague the daily lives of normal people. That's the brief for today.